Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my cyclical living journey as somebody who is in a feminine incarnate form this lifetime. I do have some notes here on the side, my laptop and my journal, so if I look over here, that's what I'm doing because this is kind of a lot that I want to talk about. So first and foremost, I'd like to distinguish the difference between intuitive eating and cyclical eating because I'm going to be talking about food in this, but also self-care in general. This is just a subcategory of what I'm going to be talking about with like the cyclical journey as a whole. But when it comes to the food stuff, the cyclical eating is more structured, whereas intuitive eating is more of a flow. So with the cyclical, it really is attached to like certain foods are eaten during certain phases of your menstrual cycle. Whereas intuitive eating is like in the moment. It's very much like what you feel like you need, what you're called towards day to day, and have it like not be attached to the phases in that way necessarily. So I just wanted to distinguish that really quick before we get into it here. So my number one tip, if you're somebody who also wants to align your life with your cycle, is to understand it. That is step number one. And so as I kind of go through what I've discovered for myself, I'm going to be talking about energy levels and kind of what the body does during each cycle. And so with that information, you can take that and kind of go through these other steps that I'm about to get into as well to figure out what that looks like for you, if that makes sense. So let's start with our bleed. Okay, so our bleed is where our energy is at its lowest. We typically lose a lot of iron during this time because of, the blood shedding, leaving our bodies. I tend to feel lightheaded. Some upper thigh numbness happens as well. I tend to really enjoy warmth and softness during this time, warm foods. Besides that, it's interesting because from the mental, emotional, and spiritual side of things, I've also noticed that deeper themes in life categories that need to be addressed come up. And so I can see issues and see what's not working clearer. Because it's almost like the body's in this spot where there's like absolutely zero tolerance for BS or performative nonsense, or like whatever's not working is really going to show itself that it is not working during this time, which is powerful, which is cool. And so besides that, that is kind of what the bleed is in a nutshell. So next we move on to the follicular phase where your energy starts to go up a little bit. I tend to crave refreshing and light food during this time, especially fruit, like nothing dense, nothing heavy, because again, that energy is kind of building itself back up from like being so kind of tired during the bleed. And this is interesting. I wrote this down. Processing things with complex thought isn't preferred. So what did I say about the bleed? Things tend to come up. Things tend to be understood on a deeper level during the bleed. And so after that week or so, depending on how long your cycle is, your bleed is specifically, kind of tired, kind of like, okay, I found out what I needed to find out, and now I am on my way back up, right? So for me personally, I have found that I don't like complex thought during this time. I just want to kind of chill and be lighthearted about everything. Feeling things and moving through things quietly and smoothly with gentle intention. Inner dialogue and narration can also be exhausting and draining. So if you're somebody who runs through lists, like I said, any thought process that is intense or too repetitive, I typically don't like during my follicular. And so getting into the foods, like I said, refreshing light food for me. Nothing heavy meat, mostly fruit, and flaky fish. Increased importance of holding space for my thoughts and emotions and to practice mindfulness. Otherwise, I get restless and sad. Careful with media consumption. of all kinds. Yeah. And so getting into that lightness, your energy is kind of going back up. And so that's what I found out for myself, what I like. And that's kind of what the body does. And that's how I have interpreted what I need to align with that. And so next we have the ovulation phase, your most fertile phase, your fertile window, as some practices call it. This is where your energy is at its highest. And so for me, I do a lot of high intensity exercising during this time. I like to go out with my friends a lot. I just like to be out. I like to explore, go to the farmer's market, and like just do things, activities in my local area. And so for me, so I wrote down here, I like to eat especially clean during this time. With my energy being so high and the exercises being the most intense that they are during my cycle, it makes sense that I would want to fuel my body, and I feel called to fuel my body in an extra clean way. But it's different from the follicular phase, because the follicular is very like light, fruity, flaky fish. But here I will go in with like some of the heavier, I guess, grains like quinoa and avocado, maybe some organic like chicken and beef. And I want softness around in a lighthearted and deeply feminine way. And so again, because I feel light and sunny and like wanting to go out, like, ooh, and even today, like I'm actually in my ovulation right now, and you can see my outfit, like I'm wearing this like pretty like dress, like, so to kind of align with the, like what's happening energetically, again, it's about melding together the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so my spirit is like a little flaunty, a little like turned on, a little like flowery, and my body is wanting to kind of align with that, and to keep up also nutritionally with those, the way that I want to move my body, not even just in exercise, but it takes energy, like mentally and physically, to go out and to explore in the ways that I want to. And I've heard other women talk about they want to during their fertile window. So I've increased motivation during this time. And so again, your energy is at its highest. You'll want to do things typically in every category of life. Like I said, socially, career, personal projects, exercise, things like that. And so next thing, so the luteal phase. This is where the I literally wrote a little squiggly line in my notes, like a ooh, because it's on its way down, but it doesn't drop until the bleed. And so for me here, I am still turned on, but it's less flowery. It's more like it's kind of like darker and like, I don't want to say aggressive, but it's less pretty, like it's less warm, if that makes sense. That's just what I wrote down. That's what I noticed for me. And so it's interesting because more irritation tends to come up during this time. And so, people talk about PMS, right? Something I wrote down in my notes here is I can get angry if self-care is put on the back burner. So really being with myself. So yes, we just came out of the ovulation, the fertile window. I was seeing a lot of friends, doing a lot of stuff. And so now it's like, okay, like let's kind of reel it in here. My body is kind of going, it's on its way back down, right? And so don't overload yourself. I recommend don't overload yourself during this time. Allow that natural feeling that you receive and that body wisdom that you receive to guide you. Kind of slow down the plans, slow down the events, spend more time at home gradually as you move towards the bleed, because that's what I have found the body really wants, as it kind of prepares. And so in that same vein of preparation, I have found that craving oily meats and foods that are deeply savory, with dense nutritional value is important, because, and that's actually something I read about, medically, physically speaking, you're going to be losing all that iron and all those kind of vitamins in your body from losing all that blood here in just a couple days. In this luteal phase, you're leading up to that. And so the body wants to absorb as much nutrients, consume dense foods as much as possible. And so this is when I kind of get into like, I don't even know what examples to use, but maybe the less healthy stuff. Um, like, breaded chicken, okay, rather than like for example, in the ovulation phase or the fertile window, I would want to have like, the grass fed, the organic, like just plain like grilled stuff. Well, in this phase, like I want it breaded with something, you know, sauces, warm oiliness. And so I've actually also found that light foods or foods that are too clean make my body feel very depleted. I don't like dry food either during this time. It needs to have substance. It needs to have like the oily, the wet, the dense. um, Increased need for physical rest paired with mental rest at the same time. Lay down and take breaks. So what did I say about like kind of slowing down the calendar, slowing down those activities, spacing out more, like putting more space in between your activities, basically within reason, whatever you're able to do. And I'm more reflective and in slight void energy. During this time, I have felt mentally and spiritually, because again, during the bleed, that's when a bunch of stuff comes into your awareness, right? Still wanting softness, but in a way where it's for comfort and calm. Also, veiling feels great. So femininity is all about that warmth. It is all about that softness. But I've noticed that throughout my phase, physically speaking, what's around me, like I have this fuzzy blanket behind me right now. I like to just like, and it takes on that warmth, and that softness takes on a different brand, I guess, throughout the cycle, the phases. For the bleed, it's very like, like I just want rest, and I'm like so tired and so low in energy, right? And then for the follicular, it starts going up again. And just like mildly cuddly, just like gentle. I'm coming out of the hermit blanket hole. And then the most fertile, I'm just like, woo. It's all about like maybe not so much heavy blankets, but like just soft, light fabric like this. See? And then the luteal, moving back into that kind of like the process of going back into the blanket tunnel, basically. And so I also wrote down that veiling feels great. Veiling is a spiritual practice where you can either wear a hat or a bandana, or if you are somebody who is Islamic or Muslim, the hijab is not only for modesty, but it has energetic spiritual benefits as well, of like, especially when you're going out into the world. Again, I said spacing out those activities in your calendar. Your energy is going down. And so it can feel easier to go to activities and to go to work and to do whatever you need to do practically in the 3D throughout your day. If you have kind of, it's literally like a barrier. It's literally a shield that kind of protects your crown chakra from like absorbing a bunch of stuff from the outside. So, like I said, even if it's just a bandana, that is a barrier between your head, which is like a blooming flower, and energy outside of you, and it can just feel less overwhelming to do those necessary 3D tasks during this time. And so, my body might feel a little bit heavier, a little bit doughier, because during the fertile window or the ovulation, again, very light, very high energy, very like snatched, but that energy is depleting. And so you might feel a little bit softer during this time physically. And so that is what I wrote down for my notes here. And so basically step 2, so that's the overview. I wove in some of my specific stuff, but also some of the general what is typically talked about on a broader scale for many women in the medical field and also spiritually. And so I guess those energy levels are what I kept in mind initially. And so understanding your cycle, let's just review. So the bleed, lowest energy. The follicular phase, you're on your way back up. The fertile window or the ovulation, highest peak energy. And then the luteal phase is like, and then it's like going down. So once you know that, I invite you to, in each phase, because this is literally what I did. Each of these little notes here are separated into sections. And so whatever phase you are currently in right now, write down what you're feeling mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What kind of foods are you craving? Write it down so that you can have it to reference later, and do that for each of your cycle phases. And so you can notice things like behaviors, food cravings, and what feels warm and comfy. Like I said, maybe you like veiling, maybe you like taking naps or baths more during certain phases. Write that down, because that distinguishes the phases from each other basically throughout your whole cycle, and how they can work together and how you can honor each phase as much as possible. And so from there, my step 3 here, write it all down. Okay, yeah, I already said that. Step 4 is to live it and see how it feels. It's so nice to have this to reference back to so that I can make sure that I am in harmony. And it does feel really, really good. Sometimes I can get into work modes or my hypermasculine shield, which overall I'm moving out of it, but this is, I'm sure you've heard people talk about it, this is a very hypermasculine society. This society, especially Western society, was made for men. So for us to be able to go out into the world, feel into our bodies, be aware of what cycle we're in, and just write down what we need. Write down what feels good food wise, like body temperature, comfiness, baths, or whatever wise, activity level, energy level. Like, are you super excited to, like I said, see your friends and to go out exploring and taking little trips or doing little fun stuff outside, versus when do you like to be inside more? When do you like to kind of be with yourself? To put that in harmony, to live in harmony with yourself, that also works in this outside world that kind of really wasn't set up for us. It's going to feel so liberating, and you are going to be able to take control in a way that is supportive for you. So, I'm pretty sure that's all I wanted to talk about. So, thank you guys so much for watching. If there are any questions at all that you have, please feel free to put them in the comment section. If you wanted me to make a separate video about how to kind of count your cycle days, kind of getting into the nitty gritty of like, oh, how do I know where I'm in my cycle? I can also write that down. I can make it into a video. And so, yeah, let me know. There are also apps that you can use. That's actually where I started. It said like, oh, this phase starts like, actually, maybe I can go over it right now, guys. Okay, just really quick. So the bleed is anywhere from 4 to 7 days typically. And then after your bleed ends, on the 3rd day, after your bleed ends. So like your bleed ends and then 1-2 days, and then on the 3rd day, that is when your fertile window starts. And the follicular phase goes from your fertile window through your luteal. So it kind of is like an overarching that kind of goes through those 2 phases. But there are like those in between days. The 2 days in between your bleed and your fertile window, that is purely follicular. So that is where like you will feel that phase purely in those 2 days where nothing else is going on. And then the luteal phase is, the follicular is 14 days. The luteal is 12 days, I believe. And basically your fertile window is 7 days after the 3rd day, after your bleed. So, okay, oh my gosh, bleed however many days, 5 to 7 days, whatever it is for you, pay attention, see what you're seeing. 2 days after the bleed fully ends, on that third day after those 2 purely follicular phase days, your fertile window starts for the next 7 days. And then after that, you start your luteal phase. And sometimes there might be another pure day in between the ovulation and the luteal, and so that would be another pure follicular day. But again, the follicular extends from the fertile window into the past and through the luteal phase. And so alongside the pure days and the overarching days, just keep in mind, what you're feeling. But once you are in those other phases, like they kind of, it's that phase and then follicular second. Does that make sense? And so luteal 12 days or until you bleed. So those are the days. Mine is every 27 days. It depends on the person. It might be irregular, or it might be every 24, 25 days, 26, 27, in that range. So like 24 to 27 days. Every 24 to 27 days you bleed. And so just count your days of those phases from there. I hope that was helpful and clear. So yeah, again though, as I was saying, if there's anything that was like weird or confusing, like, Olivia, that was way too chaotic, like, please make a separate video about it. I will, just let me know. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.